Hey, greetings everyone. It's Glenn Kellaway coming to you from the basement. It's Saturday. A few days ago, I started a series, and I was waiting to see how it went. I did. Sorry, I'm still battling a cold. Um, a beginner's guide to, and I started off with the Grateful Dead, and I just wanted to see how it was received. I mean, I'm just trying to show you the path that I took to discover some new artists. So that's basically what this is about. There's no right way or wrong way. This isn't the golden road or anything that I'm showing you, but this is second in the series, and this was the most challenging one. I've been thinking about this long before I did the Grateful Dead one. I would have done it first, but I just couldn't get my head around it, man. It is difficult, but a beginner's guide to Frank Zappa. Uh, man. So Frank Zappa has a catalog, 62 officially released titles in his lifetime. He passed away in 1993. Another 63, I think, I might be off by one or two, 63 posthumous releases through the Zappa estate, etc. So you're talking 125 titles to, if you were a Zappa completist. That's not counting bootlegs and whatever. So anyway, but I think the way to start off is you have to understand Frank Zappa. You need a bit of background on him before you start digging into his music, because it's all over the place. It is so daunting, and you can click on the wrong track and go, this isn't for me, and you can click on another track and say, man, that guitar is fantastic, or great blues song, great jazz tune, great jazz fusion, whatever you're into. So just let me give you a bit of background on Frank. This is just the Cliff Notes, Cole's Notes version. So if I miss something out or something, I'm not trying to put myself off as an authority. When Frank first discovered a passion and a love for music, he fell in love with doo-wop music in the 50s. He fell in love with R&B, especially an artist by the name of Johnny Guitar Watson, who's really great guitar player, and modernist classical composers, Igor Stravinsky and Edgard Varese. Now, especially when you listen to Frank's stuff that gets out there, and you just go and check out Edgar Varese, go listen to, I think the album's called Ionization. If you want to hear some whacked out stuff, man, this guy is out there. But if you hear that and then listen to Frank, you understand where the motivation came from. Anyway, so so Frank incorporated all this kind of music into his music. And the other thing is, in 1972, Frank had a bad accident. I think it was 71, I think, maybe. He was performing on stage. So we all know the famous song from Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple, some stupid with a flare gun shot the place to the ground, burned up all the stuff. So that was Frank on stage, fire. 6 days later, he's performing in England, the Rainbow Theatre, and some crazy guy comes up and pushes him off the stage into the orchestra pit. Frank was in a wheelchair for 6 months, broke his pelvis, broke his leg, ruptured his lung. He could have killed him. It was a real serious accident, and Frank was laid up for months and months and months. And so there's lots of stuff going on here in the background. The other thing was, when Frank moved to L.A., grew up, he pretty much was raised as a teenager in a place called Lancaster, California, outside of L.A. And so when he decided to move to L.A., and so the other thing, let me tell you about Frank, is he's self-taught in terms of music theory. Frank is, I mean, the man is, he is a genius. And he went to the library and studied books on music theory, harmony construction, and all that kind of stuff. He taught himself music theory So he understood how to write music, understand music, write music for every type of instrument. I mean, he did this on his own, man. If you've ever studied music theory, it's a language, and it's not easy to it's easy to maybe get a basic understanding of notes and stuff, scales, but to understand it to the depth that Frank took it is where he could just sit down and I'll put note here, note here, note here, and play it. I mean, unbelievable. So he goes to L.A. He runs into this guy who's making a film, and he wants Frank to score it. So Frank scores it. Then the guy can't pay him. This guy owned a recording studio, if I've got the story right. Frank takes over the recording studio, and he's in the recording studio, and this kind of underground cop doesn't like long hairs and stuff like that. He goes into Frank's studio and tries to set him up, asks Frank to make him a porn video. Frank refuses to do a porn video, and so he says to the guy, I'll make you an audio tape. It's for a stag party. The guy says it was for a stag party or something, but it's a total setup. So the guy says, okay. He says, I'll come back tomorrow and I'll make you a 30-minute audio tape. So him and his friend, they make this stupid audio tape that has nothing to do with sex whatsoever. They just do all these stupid noises and funny things. Like they just thought it was a big joke. And they give it to the guy. Doors busted down. He's arrested for distributing pornography. Spent 6 months in jail. So you get some understanding of the humor and why he kind of flew it in people's faces with sexual comments and some of the childish humor. It was all done in retaliation to that whole thing. So you kind of give him a bit of a, get out of jail free card with that. So anyway, we've got how many periods of Frank Zappa? 66 to 68 is the original Mothers, basically, with Freak Out album, Absolutely Free. I think there's a few avenues to visit Frank. If you want to just start at the start, if you're brave, just start with Freak Out and work your way. You're going to get elements of doo-wop in here. You're going to get elements of rock. You're going to get elements of humor, jazz fusion, social commentary. You're going to get it all with this album. It's a classic, but it might not be the best place to start for mainstream music fans. So from there, 1969, we get Hot Rats, which is considered by many to be Frank's greatest album, and a ton of people choose this as the starting point for Frank. I'm not going to choose it as the starting point. It's a fantastic record. It's great. It's all instrumental except for one song, Willie the Pimp, which Captain Beefheart sings the lead on. Once you get through Beefheart's vocal and you get to Frank's guitar solo, it is frickin' incredible. The second song on the album, absolutely brilliant. It's definitely an album that you're going to want to play, but I'm not going to say it's number one. I'm going to say it might be number 2 or 3. So after that, you get 70, 71, the Flo and Eddie period. Flo and Eddie, Howard Kalin and Mark Volmer from the Turtles, Happy Together. They join the Mothers of Invention. And it turns into a bit of a comedy act with great music supporting it. And it's my least favorite Zappa period. I know my great friend Larry Graves is a fan of that period. I'm not. I get bored with it really fast because the humor, once I've heard it, and I just want to hear music. I'm a Zappa guy who loves the music. So 1971, 72, he has that accident, and he comes back and he just works in the studio. He can't do much else, and he comes up with these albums that were just reissued. Grand Wazoo and Waka Jawaka. Now these are basically jazz fusion albums. There's a couple of vocal tracks, but 90% is just great music. If you're into jazz fusion, you'll love these albums. And these reissues are just sound incredible. They are so good. Best reissues I've heard in many years. But here's where I'm kind of going to jump in here. The next few years, I think, were the most prolific and the most commercial of Frank's career. You get Overnight Sensation, which has Montana on it and songs like that that are cool. And you get Apostrophe, which is another album that I'd consider starting with. And you get in 1976 Zoot Allures. This is the album I'm going to suggest you start with if you're a rock fan. If you're a fan of rock music, check out Zoot Allures. This is really just a guitar-driven rock band. Terry Bozzio on drums with him on this. Trying to think of who else starts. Zappa plays a lot of great guitar on this album, but wind up working in a gas station. Black Napkins, Torture Never Stops, Disco Boy. It's a kind of a comment on the disco era. Finder Finer is real rock and roll 50s type song. So this is a rock album as far as I'm concerned, and if you're into rock music, start there. Okay. Next, I'm going to suggest Apostrophe. Another album that's very accessible. It's got some great cuts on this, man, like Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, Careful Where the Huskies Go, which is just a cool song. Now, one thing you'll notice with Frank is, he'll have a song that really is just a 12-bar blues song, and then all of a sudden there's a little interlude where it goes into some weird stuff. That's where he comes in with little jazz stuff and little, orchestral stuff and marimbas and all kinds of weird stuff. It's almost like a little commercial in the middle of a song. You hear like, ding, ding, ding. I love that stuff. It's great. It's a kind of a surprise in the song, breaks up a typical blues song. That's the stuff that I think you got to listen for Frank's brilliance. So I'm going number 1, Zoot Allures. I'm going number 2, Apostrophe. Number 3, Hot Rats. And then let's talk about some live Zappa. So let's also mention that in the 80s, Frank kind of gave up the guitar for a while. He's a great guitar player, and concentrated on an instrument called a synclaver, which is a digital synthesizer, which gave him the sounds of every instrument, and he composed for every instrument known to man. He started composing orchestral work and symphonies, and some of these were performed in different, by different symphony orchestras around the world and things like that. The man, I'm telling you, genius. So if you're interested in orchestral type music, orchestral favorites, this is amazing. Fantastic record. If you want something straight ahead, almost bluesy, lots of guitar and stuff like this, check out this album, Imaginary Diseases. This is a great record, man. It's just, I'm telling you, it is really straight ahead blues rock with a bit of Zappa kind of zaniness thrown in, but fantastic. Does humor belong in music? Another great one. What's good about this? Now, Frank did a couple of really cool tracks. He did Whipping Post by the Allman Brothers. If you like that song, he does a killer version of that on here. And this also includes some early stuff like Trouble Every Day, which is one of his classic songs. WPLJ, which is White Port and Lemon Juice, which is like a doo-wop song that's on Burnt Weenie Sandwich. Another one, The Best Band You Never Heard in Your Life. This is incredible. This is a big jazz band, pretty much. Now, there's a lot of comedy on this. When they recorded this album in 1988, they'd met Johnny Cash early that day, and Johnny was supposed to come and play with them that night, and his wife June got sick, so he couldn't show. So they made a joke out of the song Ring of Fire, and they played it, and then they break into kind of Ring of Fire every once in a while, and they do a lot of weird stuff on here, like I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and on side 2 they start doing all these classic rock songs with a bit of humor. Purple Haze, Sunshine of Your Love, Um, they do the theme from Bonanza, and then at the end they do Stairway to Heaven. And Frank wrote out Jimmy Page's guitar solo in Stairway to Heaven for brass. There's not one guitar, it's all done brass, note for note. It's very cool. Stairway to Heaven. And one more, this one is great too. There's a movie called the Roxy, Live the Roxy or whatever. You can catch it on probably on YouTube or something. But Roxy and Elsewhere, great band, great live stuff. There's an album CD set called the Roxy Performances, which I should have brought over. That's my favorite box set. It starts off with a killer version. The album doesn't, but the box set starts off with a killer version of a blues track, and it goes on for about 11 minutes, and it's just you get to hear some great stuff. So, and you think about the musicians who played with Frank. We got Jean-Luc Ponty, the great jazz violinist. Steve Vai, great guitar player. Ainsley Dunbar played drums with Frank. Just there's a ton of people. Flo and Eddie. So I hope this wasn't confusing. Try Zoodalures, try Apostrophe, try Hot Rats, try some live stuff. If you're brave enough, just start from the beginning and try and appreciate where he was coming from. Like I told you, his background and how he was thinking. And I'm hoping that kind of might clear it up for you that the man is just not a filthy pig who came up with all this childish stuff. He is an absolute musical genius and deserves you to try and get into it. You won't regret it if it clicks. You'll be thanking me forever. So, have a great day, everyone. Take care. Love you all. Thanks for watching. Let me know, please. I need your thoughts on this. Thank you.